I'd like to call to order the regular Town Commission meeting of January the 10th, 2023. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the flag.
If you want to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're welcome.
It's good to see everybody survive the holidays. April, please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo, Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, here.
Okay, we have no proclamations or presentations, so we'll go right to public comment. And we do have one public comment, Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jackie Thurlow-Lippisch, and I reside at 18 Riverview Drive in the town of Sewalls Point. But tonight I am here as your representative on the South Florida Water Management District Board. I am an at-large member, which means I'm one of two people on the East Coast who represent from St. Lucie to Monroe County. But it's very hard for me not to favor my child, Martin County, but I tried to be fair. I'm mostly here to tell you something that you already know, which is good news, and that is that the St. Lucie River has not had horrendous discharges, repetitive, intense discharges for 4 years, since 2018. And this is an amazing accomplishment. And yes, a lot of this has to do with Mother Nature, but it also has to do with operations and decisions of the Army Corps of Engineers in the South Florida Water Management District, which is great. I wanted to share with you, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of this, that the Army Corps and the district are expecting lots of algae, blue-green algae, in Lake Okeechobee this summer because of Hurricane Ian that came through and hit the southwest coast. Whenever that happens, it was like after Irma, the lake gets all cheered up in the sediment, and it releases a lot of the phosphorus and nitrogen that's down in the sediment, and it generally leads to a very bad situation in Lake Okeechobee. Right now, the lake is high. It's at like, I think, 16.43 feet, and it's been going a little bit up, a little bit down, but we are keeping our fingers crossed for no discharges from Lake Okeechobee. However, if they do discharge, it would be my wish, and I hope yours, that they discharge under what they call a HAB deviation. And a HAB deviation is a harmful algae bloom deviation. This was totally created by the Army Corps of Engineers when Colonel Kelly was the colonel. And it was because of this community fighting so hard, saying you can't open the gates when there's algae, brewing in the lake. And so they got around their normal schedule, their LOR schedule, which is the lake operations schedule, and figured out a way that they could release some of the water, if necessary, when the algae is not bubbling up. And so we'll see. I'm fighting for no discharges, but the Caloosahatchee is receiving beneficial discharges, but now they're starting to say, we think we've had enough. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. And you've been great advocates, and of course we want no discharges, but if they do, it should be to avoid blue-green algae blooms in the summer. Okay, I'll leave some information with your clerk, and thank you so much for your dedication to the beautiful town of Sewalls Point.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jackie.
Commissioner Fender. Did you have something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Jackie a quick question, if she'd indulge me. Just one real quick question. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hey, Jackie.
Yes,
First,
sir.
thanks for all you do, and I appreciate
Oh,
your
absolutely.
your support in the position that you're in. So it's super helpful for us, for sure. But I'm curious, and I should know this, and I will study more, but let's say there were some discharges. Can you remind me or bring me up to speed or tell me what you might or might not know about the new EAA area that's been excavated to the south
Right.
of the lake? Are we going to take any of the discharges away from us during that time frame?
Yes, that will happen, but it will probably happen in 5 to 7 years from
So
now.
it's a ways out. Okay.
Yes, the stormwater, most of these, all of these projects are a cost share between the Army Corps and the South Florida Water Management District, the local sponsor. And they often split up how it's built and who does the work in kind or pays for it, but it has to be even. And so the district, the South Florida Water Management District, we built the stormwater treatment area. It's finished because we're just faster. And the Army Corps is just starting the reservoir. But a lot of that, not to their credit, but just to the realities of life, they were sued by the person who did not get the contract. I mean, it's billions of dollars. And if they're challenged, it goes to the highest levels of the law, and it takes like a year to get through the whole thing. So they're like a year behind because of that lawsuit. And so they'll start building this year because they got it worked out. And it will take, the original time was 2028, but now they're saying 2029.
Okay.
And you know, as I know, you take all of this with a grain of salt and you fight to push projects, whether it's here in Sewalls Point or on the state level or on the federal level. You are behind them with a blowtorch, you know, just making sure it gets done and letting them know that the people, you know, the taxpayers want it done so that they don't go on for, you know, decades.
Well, I saw some great video with some huge explosions, which looked like there was some huge excavation going on. So I assume there must be.
And a lot
a
has
bowl.
been done. A lot has been done. And
It's a problem, we just don't have a pipe to get to the bowl, or?
the storm, I'm not sure if I'm understanding you totally correctly.
Well, I'm just
but
saying, it seemed to me that like a massive amount of excavation was done. I'm just wondering what it takes to get the water to that excavation site.
It's already done through the Miami Canal and the New River Canal, which are like, if you're looking at Lake Okeechobee, there are 3 major canals, but these are the biggest ones that are off to the west and then south. And so the water will be transferred through those canals. It's no problem. That's in place. And so they're building it right next to it, and so they'll just have little rivulets, so to speak, that attach that water. And so, you know, it will get done. And I don't want to bore you too much, but it's
Interesting stuff.
there's always a lot of complicated things, you know, like politics and stakeholder. And then in 2025, the district has to meet what's called a QBEL, and a QBEL is a water quality level. Because of the lawsuit from 2000 with the Mississauga Indians who said, you guys are destroying our land. And so, you know, all the water has to be measured, and they're checking that it's not too much, and it's just excruciating. And what's really messed up is it has to be that careful going down there, but to us, they can like dump it, the dirtiest, most disgusting water you've ever seen in your life. And so, it's unfortunate.
Well, thanks for all your advocacy on this. It's great.
Okay, well, great. Well, I hope to see you all again. And I'm going to try to plan a field trip to the C44 stormwater treatment area and reservoir, which is the first component of Indian River Lagoon South, the big project that's starting to fix a lot of these problems. And I will contact the town manager and maybe you and the city of Stewart, and we can do it in a way where sunshine is not breached. If you haven't seen it, that'll give you many ideas of all the reservoirs are very similar to that. And it is mind-boggling. I mean, these things it's like building a pyramid. They're huge. It's overwhelming. You know, the biggest water improvement project in the world. right here in South Florida, and we're part of it, and I think we started it. I do. I think it wouldn't have happened if those river kids hadn't started here in Sewalls Point, and Joe Negron hadn't become our president of the Senate and become so passionate about things. I don't think we would be going in the direction we are today. So Sewalls Point has a lot to be proud of.
Great.
Thank
you, Jackie.
Okay, thank you.
Diane Kimes?
Good evening, Diane Kimes, 2 Riverview Drive. I know you know that street. I'm here to share on behalf of many of my neighbors that the situation on that region of South Sewalls Point and Riverview is untenable. I have lived in this house for almost 20 years, and ever since Francis and Jean, the flooding has gotten worse. Even before Hurricane Nicole hit, the water was really 2/3 up the street. It was the largest that it had ever risen, and this was even before any water fell. So it is a situation that as a town commission, you all should be complicit in some of the damage that's happening to our streets, our roads, but more importantly, our property. This is one of our largest assets in my situation, and we've lost between the erosion, dead plants, the effluent water. Last time we were here, about 2 years ago, they tested the water. It was 157,000 parts over the normal range of effluent, which you all know that is poop. So literally, poop had been sitting on, that water is full of crap. And it came up 3/4 of the way of Sewalls Point on Riverview. In that case, it sat on our roadway for well over 3 weeks. This time, it did drain a little bit, but it was really horrible. And I know that there is work underway to expand the water retention, and it stops just short of our street. It's going to continue. The plan is to take it to Pineapple. I am urging you to do the right thing and move it to Riverview. It's the worst situation on South Sewalls Point Road. And frankly, we couldn't sell our house if we wanted to, but it is just, we're at wit's end, and we don't know what to do. And I know that there is a plan in place, and please consider Riverview as an alternative to make that grant that Joe Capra is working on, the plans that you all are looking at. We need to fix this because it's been going on way too long, and it's just very frustrating. So we think this is a great community. We need a working group to develop a strategy for climate change. It's happening, and we are right at the front lines. And as I said, this board and the boards in the past that haven't done anything are complicit and really should move forward. But please do something.
Thank you. Okay, that's a little public comment. We have any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? If not, I look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck.
Yes. Next item is the consent agenda. There's nothing listed, but we do have the 9/20/22 final budget public hearing minutes that were included in the package. So I'd look for a motion to approve those minutes, which will approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo,
I was not here, so I'm going to vote no.
Commissioner Fender,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us down to public hearings, ordinance, second readings, and the first second reading is amending ordinance number 445, amending the time of regular meetings. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
I will, thank you. Ordinance number 445 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 8, Meetings, Division 1, Generally, Section 2-341, Time of Regular Meetings, to change the Commission regular meeting time from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. and for such other purposes, time for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and an effective date.
Okay, are there any public comments?
Move approval.
Second?
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender,
Absolutely.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo.
Aye.
Okay, the next ordinance is number 446, updating the land development regulation for accessory dwelling units. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Yes, ordinance number 446 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, to update the land development regulations to be consistent with the 2022 comprehensive plan as required by Florida State Statute 163.3201 by amending Chapter 78 subdivisions, Article 1 in general, Section 78-7 accessory dwelling units, removing Section 78-112 extension of River Road, removing Subdivision 3 residential estate classification and Section 82-261 setback for accessory dwelling, guest house, or servants' quarters, and amending Section 82-276 fences to provide for temporary fence standards and for other purposes, providing for severability, the repeal of all conflicting ordinances, codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on ordinance number 446? Any discussion among the commission?
I'd like to make a motion to move 446.
Is there a second?
I mean, I pressed the button right when he was saying that, so but I can make a motion, but I have a discussion, so,
Okay.
or a second the
There's a
motion, excuse
motion on
me.
the floor, and you in a second?
Yeah.
Okay, discussion?
This, I don't know how big a deal this is, but in the title, it doesn't mention it mentions all the sections that are addressed except for 82-275 about the minimum enclosed living area. I don't know, I mean, I'm not the lawyer, I don't know if that's a problem. It looks fine, I look back, it's the same, but it doesn't actually say, it addresses all the other ones that were changed or removed, but I didn't see it say anything about section 82-275 in the title.
Actually, don't see any changes to 82-275. Maybe that's why it was not mentioned.
I see one.
No, the
Is there-
350 square feet,
But maybe
Is that
the
it?
area.
maybe that's what it was originally, but in that version, we have the red.
To be on the safe side, I will add to the reading of, I don't think it's necessary, but to add to to be safe, I'll add, also as part of that title, amending section 82-275. Relating to dimensions for accessory dwelling units or guest houses. And
Okay,
again, I think that's covered on the part that says setback for accessory dwelling units and amending section 82-276, but it doesn't hurt
I don't.
to have the belt and suspenders.
Okay, that's me, belt and suspenders. And I have one other question for Bonnie. What's the, how come one of them says reserved when it's removed? I know I asked about that, and one of them is just gone. You know, when you, what?
The reason why we put that reserved in there is so we don't have to renumber. So it just
Okay,
kind of
okay,
holds
okay.
those numbers and it keeps everything sequential. So it's
Good
just
answer.
an easy way to avoid renumbering everything.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yes, I have one other little thing. I think this is the right, oh, no, that's on the next one. Never mind.
And
Yep,
I just
I'm
have
good.
one thing to say. I did want, the public to understand, if this is the first time they've heard this, that we have been through several meetings to get to this point. We're not just, we met, we had a workshop with the LPA, who gave me many comments, which you'll see in the comment sheet, which is in the agenda packet. We went through all of the comments from both the public and from the commission and reviewed those, and sometimes made changes and sometimes did not. But we came to consensus we came to the December 13th meeting with an updated version of each of these three ordinances, which the commission agreed were good, and we didn't have any public comments regarding that. So what you see before you is the same one that we had in the first reading, but not the same as the workshop, and that's for all three ordinances.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is ordinance number 447, amending land development regulation, lot splits and lot mergers. Town Attorney, please read the ordinance title into the record.
This ordinance number 447 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending Chapter 78 subdivisions to update and define the land development regulations, to provide advertising requirements for public hearings, to provide consistency within the document, to update the processes for lot splits and lot mergers, and to establish a process to declare a zoning in progress, and for other purposes, providing severability, the repeal of conflicting ordinances, codification, and providing for an effective date.
Is there any public comment on this ordinance? Any additional commission discussion? Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, this is small, it's a typo, but I feel like it's kind of important because it's at the second reading. If you go to 78-5, the zoning in progress, B, notice of declaration, number 1, that says publication of a notice, I believe it should say of a public hearing as opposed to or a public hearing. 46.
You think it should be of instead of or?
I think it should be of instead of or. Because the one below it is publication of a notice of a public hearing before the LPA, and the top one's publication of a notice of a public hearing before the Town Commission. What was it? Is that right?
Okay, I just want to see it. And then let's see. Which number was that?
78.5B1.
B1, publication notice.
I think it's supposed to be up. I think or should be up. That's the way it is below, right?
I need to look at that. I'm not really sure what you're,
No, you're
You
correct.
see-
You're correct. You're correct.
Okay.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Publication.
so we
of
left
notice
out some words.
Or.
No, you didn't leave it out, just
No,
change it.
Of should be.
It says or, it should be of.
Of.
Oh, so change or to of?
Yeah.
Okay, and that can just be in the motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, it's not
Thank
big, but I feel like if someone was reading this 3 years from now, they'd be like, what did they mean?
No, it needs to be right, because once it's codified,
Yes.
they're going to say, what were we thinking? Exactly. So we'll make that change. And that should go in the motion as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 447, changing 78.5B1 to publication of a notice of a public hearing.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo, Commissioner Fender.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is ordinance number 448, amending land development regulations, development applications. Would the town attorney please read the ordinance title into the record?
Ordinance number 448 is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending the land development regulations, Chapter 78, major subdivisions, to provide the requirements for the submittal of site plan applications, to provide a procedure for reviewing site plan applications, providing for the hearing process for approval of final plats, providing for severability, the repeal of conflicting ordinances, codification, and to provide for an effective date.
Okay, are there any public comments on ordinance number 448? Commission discussion? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 448.
I'll second it.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo. Aye. Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Mayor Tom Peck.
Yes. Okay, we have no first reading of any ordinances, no resolutions, no old business, and we do have some new business, which is the State Water Quality Assurance Grant submission. Mr. Daniels.
Yes, sir. If we go back to our meeting on the 13th of December, we had found a grant that we were interested in putting in an application for. I believe it was about the 11th or 12th of December when it got published. I believe it was published on a Friday. Our meeting, as I recall, was on a Tuesday. And so when I found out about it on Monday, obviously I couldn't, bring it to you at the meeting because I want to give you an opportunity to take a look at it. I did mention it at our meeting on the 13th that it looked like something that we'd want to put in for. It's a shovel-ready project. And so we went ahead and you all, I explained to the commission that I would bring it before tonight's meeting if we decided to go ahead with the application. So that application's here in the packet. We did apply for it. It had to be in by December 30th. So we didn't have a meeting that we could come back to because of the holidays. It was a lot of work on Joe's part and Chloe's part because of the holidays, and there were some errors that are within the application that we're working on getting corrected. I did talk to Mr. Tadikis, and Frank and I even met today just to go over his comments and his concerns, and he's not sure that he accepts the methodology that was utilized in the application, but he's going through some information that I provided to him, and we'll be dealing with that more on a one-on-one basis between us. But he did make some comments. I think he supplied them to each member of the commission, and I did give the printed copy to the clerk to be included as part of our official record, and he's happy with that. And he'd be here tonight, but he had a prior engagement. So I bring it back to you all for ratification of that decision. If not, then we would just withdraw the application.
Okay, any questions or comments? Commissioner Mayfield.
Yeah, I would make a motion to ratify the decision to apply for the $2.5 million grant for Part 1 of the septic sewer project.
And I would second.
Any comments? I have one. For some time I've been struggling with the fact that we don't get a chance to see some of these applications in a timely manner. And when I read through this application, I wasn't sure that the application accurately reflected what we really wanted the money for. Okay, and that was a little disturbing. And I think the other thing that has more recently disturbed me is is going to the Martin County delegation on Friday with our request for funds, and nobody on this commission saw that application before it went in. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's for we're asking for about $1 million for phase 2, which is logical. That'd be the next thing we want money for. But what concerned me about the form was that we put it in as a non-recurring appropriation, where I think because the stormwater project is certainly recurring, we're going to be looking for eventually for funds for maybe more funds for next section number 1 or 4 rather, that we want to do a better job in putting those together. So I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that we can get a look at some of these things before they go out, because you don't really want to go back and try to revise them once they're in, because it makes you look like you're not doing your job, and there may be some things that we don't necessarily agree with. And I don't know how you feel about that, Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think Kaya got in a tangle when there was a misunderstanding last year with Michelle, and I think if the commission had looked at it before it could have prevented a lot of hassle on her part. I think it was inadvertent, but I know she caught some grief from it. So there's nothing like spreading the grief around. And the best way to do that is for all of us to take a look at it ahead of time. I'd like to ask you your specific comment on this application where you thought it was not directed in the way that we had desired. What was the specific maybe?
Well, I think if you look at and we're talking about the SWAG grant application, okay, if you read the thing, I was hard pressed to figure out that it was associated with septic to sewer because most of the discussion was about the stormwater. And I think, our intent here is to use a great part of this for the septic to sewer. And I realize there's some, it's complicated. And I had a chance to talk with Joe Capra today about, how we go about, approaching some of these grants and how we have to figure out which grants to go after so we can match grants and this kind of thing. So and I want to be a little more familiar with some of it, but I just thought that when I initially read it, I said, wait a second. I went back and said, septic to sewer. I said, this grant there's a couple of sentences about septic to sewer, but most of the grant is about stormwater. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure we can use the money for stormwater as well. But, yeah, I'm sure we can always use the money.
No, I mean, are we allowed to, or is that something that we get in?
Yeah, I think we are, based on what Joe told me today. So I'm not concerned, but I do want our grant applications accurately reflect what we're looking for.
Amen.
And, if we're not getting them, and I don't need, I'm not saying we should have, 2 weeks to look at it, but I would really feel comfortable if we had a couple of days to look at these things before they go out. And don't get me wrong, I recognize that some of these deadlines pop up and they're quick, but we've got to be agile enough to be willing to review those before they go out. Otherwise, somebody asks us questions, we're not going to know the answers. Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, I agree with it also. I think that it's definitely an asset, especially somebody like yourself, to be able to go ahead and review something that has to do with septic to sewer. That's what you did for a living for many years, and it'd be valuable to have all eyes across it so that we could actually see something before it goes out. It's sort of like being proofread 5 other times, and with your expertise in the subject, I think you definitely would be an asset on that.
Well, not my expertise, but, because Joe Capra obviously provides most of the technical information into these, and he's the expert, okay, and I'm not. But I just think it's good form for us to have a chance to review these. I hate items where we're ratifying something that's already gone out. I don't think that's the way we ought to work. And I'm sure you probably will agree with that. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah. I have a question for what you're saying, because fundamentally, I like what you're saying. Yes, I would like to see them before they go out, but what do you mean by look at before? Because there's a big difference between us getting a copy of it and looking at our own versus coming to a meeting and discussing it. I think it would make us incredibly unnimble if we had to come to a meeting and discuss every application, because it's a slow process to get things approved. And I'm under the impression from my experiences that sometimes with the grants, you have to be a little bit more nimble to acquire. And this is how Sewalls Point operates. Not raising taxes is important. We have big, important projects. This is how we're getting the vast majority of our funding. So I just want to make sure, I agree, I haven't seen stuff and it just, so I like that, but I don't want it, my concern is I don't want it to slow us down or inhibit us in the process of getting money, which is how we're paying for everything. So I guess I'm asking, what do you mean by look at? Just have us glance it over or talk about it at a meeting?
I would think that, as a minimum, that Mr. Daniels could send us a copy of the, application. We could take a quick look at it, and if you've got any questions, we can get with Mr. Daniels or Mr. Capper or whatever and make sure that it's right, And that's, and that does, it'd be real nice if there happens to be a meeting in between, but it seldom works
Right.
that way. It's usually the end of the month or something. We don't have a meeting for another 2 weeks.
Right.
So I just think we should have it in our hands so we can take a look at it and understand what we're applying for, rather than, him having to come back and ask for forgiveness after it's already been submitted.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we need, 2 weeks or a week. I mean, if you give us 2 or 3 days, I think it'll at least give us a chance to look at it and prevent this. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Daniels.
Thank you. Again, we ran into the holiday situation here, so we couldn't have a special meeting. I'm all for transparency and getting that information out to you all. What I have talked to our grant writer about is trying to at least give me 5 days before the deadline so we can look at it and Joe can look at it and make sure that, not only grammatically correct, but, it spells it out where there's no misunderstanding on what we're trying to do with the money. And I think that's very important in a grant process. So that's the conversation that I had with our grant writer. We also, as we talked about being nimble, we might run into a situation. This particular one was looking for shovel-ready projects, and you had 2 weeks, basically, to get it done. And I don't like the way it happens either. Believe me, I'd rather, make sure that you have that. So I'm going to take the mayor's suggestion, and as soon as I get it, I'm going to send it out to the whole commission. And then if you have questions or concerns, call me. If it's something that we're in a situation that we can call a meeting within, I know, our town attorney likes to have 7 days notice, but as much notice as we can get prior to it. And we can always call a meeting to make sure that you all get a chance to express your feelings. You run the policies of this city. I just run the day-to-day operations. So I just want to make sure that I get feedback from you all on what you're comfortable with and how we should proceed.
Mr. Tercivia,
72 hours.
72 hours.
That's safe. You could do less if it's an emergency, and perhaps a grant application that's due very soon might be considered an emergency, but there are cases that say 72 hours notice is enough.
Commissioner Campo?
So in the meantime, we should have a copy of what's going to be presented in front of our legislators for the legislative delegation, right? I mean, that's a problem. And, to open up big Pandora's box, if we're applying for a grant that can be used for septic to sewer and resiliency, and we're slanting it toward resiliency because Southwest Florida got hit with the hurricane, that's what the legislature likes to hear right now, and now we get the money, do we help Diane Kimes at Riverview and Jackie and the people on Riverview, or are we going to use that money for septic to sewer? So, I mean, you open up a big Pandora's box, and yeah, so I guess it's a good problem to have if we have the money. That would be a good problem to have, but it still causes a lot of friction between our competing objectives.
Bob, I'm wondering if you could send out the appropriations form you sent to me today.
Sure.
Okay, so everybody has it.
In essence, do you want to deal with this first, and then I can go through my report and kind of explain?
I think we've got a motion and a second on the floor, so if there's no other comments, we can go ahead and vote. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
All right, that'll bring us down to staff closing comments. Mr. Daniels.
Thank you. In essence, what we were looking at in reference to the delegation meeting is the way that if we are lucky enough to get an allocation of funds, an appropriation, that money will come by way of a direct program that, they go ahead and approve it just like any other bill gets approved in the House and the Senate. And then we get funded probably October or November of '23. So, what we're looking for, we kind of looked real quickly because they required us to get a form into them for the meeting. And we thought that probably the best use of the funds, and it was a discussion that I had with Joe, was with asking for a appropriation for Phase 2. Now, Phase 2 also takes in that part that we were discussing with Riverview, and it's kind of like Phase 3 plus. But one of the problems that we're having is with the ARPA funding. You know, when the federal government gave us ARPA funding 2 years ago, and we got the last tranche of that money in, I think it was in October, if I recall. But there were never any strings attached to it other than using it for your infrastructure projects or, you know, really a whole long list of things that you could use. Never did they say, well, if you're already receiving a federal grant, you can't use ARPA money. So at the last juncture of putting our resiliency Phase 3 project, that's something that was thrown up at Joe and us on putting the project together and funding it. So Joe, and he gets all the credit on figuring out how we could manage this project and still accomplish it. And I think we're pretty much got the go-aheads that we need to get the funding that we needed. And they have been working with us on it because they realize the situation that we're in. So anyhow, getting back to the subject, so we figured by getting the state appropriation, that match can be used against a federal match. So if we ask for $1 million, whether we get $1 million or not, who knows? But pretty much the funding levels aren't over $1 million, so they're pretty much, you know, $1 million or less. So that's what we were looking at asking. So I will make sure that you have the form tonight. I'll email it when we get done here tonight, so you have it. We just got it today. But again, in the future, you know, all this is all kind of ties into my discussion that I have, is we need this information ahead of time, and that way we can, or even I can critique it and make sure that it's thorough enough for what we're trying to accomplish. I do have a couple other things if I can move through those. So the legislative delegation is meeting on Friday at the Indian River State College at Port Salerno. I guess it's on Salerno Road. And that starts at 8:30 in the morning. And it runs to, I believe, 12:30. I'm not sure what time that we're going to have our few minutes to be addressing the delegation. But
That's usually, you only get like 5 or 10 minutes, right?
yes,
3 minutes. Okay, good.
so.
Keep that brief.
So, but, you know, so, well, hopefully that'll go well. On Thursday, Joe and I are doing our question and answer for Phase 3, to again, let the residents have an idea of what they can expect. Oh, hopefully they're not coming here.
That's the county. Where's the
They
county
never come
coming
in here.
Maybe they're doing it under mutual aid.
Maybe.
So, anyhow, I'll find out. But, so anyhow, we'll be here on Thursday from 4 to 6 to, you know, do an informational piece on the Resiliency Phase 3 program and what to expect with the traffic and the other things that, you know, are going to crop up during the construction. And then we'll be following up with rights of entry forms and stuff that we're going to need to make sure that we can, you know, do the job. And, you know, a lot of the areas in right-of-ways, but then there's a lot of areas where there's small right-of-ways. So we want to at least be able to make sure that we can, you know, get onto the property to get the project completed.
And that's been advertised as a public meeting.
It's not a meeting, it's a question and answer session by us, but yes, you are welcome to attend and, you know.
Here comes the city. See, how's that? Okay, who's worth more money? Yeah,
Of course, it didn't look like a fire engine.
no, that's true.
But-
That's probably what happened.
Anyhow, and then another date, and I put all these dates out today on a constant contact as well, so I was sure that everybody had these dates, but our strategic planning session with Dr. Delaney is on the 21st, thank you, from 10 to noon It's a 2-hour segment. I'll probably be here around 9 o'clock and be here till we get done. But basically, you'll have the, where you all left off at back in your last session, I think it was in 2021 that you had with Dr. Delaney. And, so you can kind of, look at it from that standpoint and see what you need to change or modify. And so she'll be taking us through that. She's very cognizant of the time that you all have and that you're putting in and, to do your job on the commission. So I think you're used to her already from, her progress that she made through the first session. And then she'll be doing a follow-up once she finishes her report. And then if you want to meet again in a workshop, she's offered that as well, if there's other things that you need to flush out afterwards. So that's on the 21st. And then the 26th, as I mentioned before, every quarter I plan on doing a breakfast with Bob. Again, just meeting with the residents here, and that's going to be on January the 26th from 9 to 10 or whenever we get done. And there'll be updates going out as well on Constant Contact and on Facebook for all these dates and as they get closer. I think I'm done.
Okay, are there any commissioner comments?
Yeah.
Off to a quiet start here. Go ahead, Commissioner Fender.
I just wanted to maybe ask Jack and also figure if we can just get a quick status on the trees that are getting impacted on number 10 Oakwood Drive. I know that's one of the last remaining lots that is unbuilt, at least in my little area. And I know they have a tree permit. Crystal was nice enough to send it to me today, and I just got a call from residents saying, they're going in there and they're damaging oak trees. And I'm like, well, let me call and see. So since we're here, maybe, I know you might have swung down today and checked it out, so I thought I'd just get the word.
Good evening. Yes, I did take a trip over there. There's an oak that they're removing right in the middle by the road right there. That happens to be right in the footprint of their driveway. A lot of the trees that they're removing are in the footprint of the house, the driveway, and unfortunately, because there's no sewer, the drain field septic area has a large area too. There's a huge ficus that they're keeping on the eastern front of the house. They're trying to save that, even though it's extremely close to the septic field and the house itself. They do have approximately 486 inches of mitigation that they're going to be doing once they remove the trees. Those are the ones that they're going to have to replant that many inches in plants, trees back in. So they do
Can't move any of them?
I don't think they can. Their arborist is saying no. And then there are also some invasives that they're removing. That whole entire lot is almost a jungle. I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And so almost anywhere they touch, there's many trees in the way, unfortunately.
Well, what I would have hoped they'd have gone through is gone in and cleared out the jungle and left the trees, just so after the trees were standing, we could see the impact to that. I'm guessing they won't do that. They'll just go in and quickly tear the place apart, but.
Yeah, if you were to take a walk into the center of it, the center's kind of clear. It's just the outer perimeter that has a lot of the trees and the bushes.
What happens in mitigation?
Well, they give us a list of all the trees that they're going to remove that are entitled to be mitigated against it. The invasives are not.
Yeah.
And what we do is we add the total inches of that, and then they have to then replant the same amount of inches back onto the property.
Of the same type of?
No, it doesn't have to be the same type, but it has to be something that's on our list.
Okay. Of any
Of native-
specific age or
Not
maturity?
necessarily, but the larger the tree, the better the landscaping will look. Also, they'll get more credits for the hardwoods versus palms. Palms only count as a quarter. So if you've got, say, 10 inches to replace, you're going to have to replace 4 times just to get to that.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
When you say 400, do you mean the width of the tree, or are you talking about height, or are you talking about like the
The width of the tree.
the circumference of the, okay, the width of the
width,
tree? Okay.
yeah.
That's a lot of
Yeah, it's 485 inches. It's quite a bit. Yes, it is.
It's a beautiful lot. I hate to see those trees go.
Jackie, did you want to add something on tree mitigation?
Is it in order, Mayor?
Yes. Since the question has come up, yes.
I would just like to say that perhaps this will give an opportunity to the commission to review the mitigation part of the ordinance, because my experience is that when sometime, for instance, my husband lived at 22 South Sewalls Point Road when we got married, but then we bought a home together on Riverview. And the people who moved into the house on 22, which I see every time I go up and down the road, they got permits to remove some of the oak trees, which was painful, but they got permits and their arborist said they could. So they put in a number of trees as described. I think they were mostly gumbo limbos, but then we had a really bad storm and the trees just kind of fell over and the town looked messy and people forgot. And so I would just say that perhaps it's an opportunity to see what the follow-up is to mitigation, so that when trees are mitigated for, we're making sure that they are growing in, and that people don't pull them out, or if a storm comes, they end up on the side of the road, and we never look back. I just don't think that there's a follow-up for it, and it is a shame. But if it's in the footprint of the house, they have the right to take down the tree. I would also hope, and I don't know if it's in the ordinance or if it's in order, but if there could be some kind of meeting, and there probably is, where it's just, I don't know if it's an order or not, but to just express that we are a tree city, that we value our trees, that Sewalls Point has one of the most incredible canopies in all of South Florida, and that we'd really appreciate if the people tried to save any trees that they could, because it's so valuable to the beauty of our town. And I think there is literature that supports that places with beautiful trees people pay more for the value of the homes, because it makes it beautiful. So, I mean, just trying to make lemonade out of lemons with these trees that probably will come down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, just wanted to see if there's any update as far as allowing, if they could lift the ceiling of 300, I guess it would be grinder units to come into South Sewalls Point. Has anything happened with the county that they're willing to let us go the full number so that everybody that wants to get a sewer can get a sewer? Like I said, my fear before was once you hit the 300, and then what happens if they ever make sewers mandatory, it could wind up getting into a whole big mess with, facilitating maybe a vacuum system or something, which would be very expensive amongst less homes to come across and do that. So if we could work, once again, if they come across to lift it where everybody could hook into the sewers with their grinders if they choose to.
Yes, I've finally was able to secure a meeting with the county administrator on the 17th. So I will be able to report back to y'all on the meeting of the 24th on the progress that we have. Joe and I both met with, Martin County Utilities, and they're also interested in getting the issue resolved sooner than later. So that's one of the things that we'll be discussing with the administrator, and also with the MOU or interlocal agreement, whichever one of the instruments that they prefer to use, which we're going to pattern off of the North Sewalls Point area when they did the sewers up in there, and that was an interlocal agreement that they used. So, but I'll know more after my meeting on the 17th, and I'll report back to you all. One other additional thing that the Vice Mayor, I know you you had asked me about getting an update on it. I missed it off my list, but the gas lines, I don't know, I think probably 3 years ago, I saw there was some correspondence about possibly getting gas lines into the town, and the vice mayor had asked me to look into it and see, if I can get an update on it. I will be having a meeting. Actually, FP&L now owns the gas company that services our area, and during the holidays, I put in a call to the gentleman, and he finally didn't call me back, but I got a hold of him today, and he's setting up a meeting with his folks. One of them is the project manager for Rio, for putting the gas lines into Rio. So basically, we're, another 3 miles down, roughly 3 or 4 miles to get the lines into our town. So I'll know whether that's a possibility. They didn't hang up on me. They didn't say you're being ridiculous or anything. So hopefully that means that maybe they're out to get more customers. I did do some research, and they are working on a plan in the Vero Beach area along the water to bring gas lines into their island areas or peninsular areas. So I see that as being a positive for those residents that want gas lines to be run. So, and I'll be working on the follow-up for that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd love to see natural gas down in this area, but from city gas's standpoint, and I know what they look at in terms of return and everything, I don't see it happening anytime soon. I hope it does, though. Commissioner Fender.
I'm still just wrapped around the tree issue. We got a little bit off track there. I like the idea of reviewing the mitigation ordinances. But what happened today was a resident called me and said, hey, what's going on? They're starting to rip out trees. And I said, let me call the town. And Crystal was very responsive. She says, oh, I've got a tree permit right here. I'll send it over to you. I said, great, send it. And I got it, and it was a beautifully done permit. But it struck me as, oh, if I want to rip out a tree, I can just go get a permit to do so. It would be nice as part of the process, and maybe it exists, and I've just get enough tree processes that when I get this permit, it has that information that Jackie was mentioning, saying, we're a tree city, and we want you to not just only get a permit to rip the trees, but to try to protect them in the process of submitting this permit. And by the way, if you rip them out, the mitigation is X, Y, and Z, which is, I'm concerned about the maturity of the trees, right? Those trees have grown there, and we have a massive canopy for decades, and we're going to plant some gumbo limbos or something that don't have the maturity or the stature or the canopy that the ones that are leaving are. So it's just a huge impact to the tradition and environment of our aesthetic. So maybe I can ask you in a future meeting is to pull up the mitigation ordinance.
Sure, and I'd be happy to. One thing that we work up against is about 2 or 3 years ago, the state legislature took the power of regulating the tree cutting ordinances and so forth. And what they require now is if you wanted to have a tree removed out of your property, you could go get an arborist, and they declare to the tree to be a danger, and we're out of the ballgame at that point in time. So, and that's what's happened in a couple of these cases. At least for the most part, the mitigation efforts haven't been curtailed. So, even though I agree with you, it's nice to have a mature tree growing, and just as long as it's healthy. And I'm not saying there's anything that's being done improperly with the reports that you get from arborists. We had a pretty good one over on Heritage that came in and showed us what we could do and what we couldn't do, and I think that's fair. My assumption is hopefully that just like all other professionals, that arborists are that way. But that is something, and Glenn can probably chime in if I'm misstating something, but we were up against it in other jurisdictions I've been at.
You got it. You're right.
I was trying to remember, maybe it was after Francis or Jean, didn't they have like a tree giveaway here?
I did, I've got
You
3 in
remember
my
that?
yard, yeah.
I planted 4 of them because I had a bunch of, my oaks came down after Francis and Jean, and those trees that we planted in 2005 are,
I've got some awesome
they're
queen
pretty,
palms.
they're pretty big. They
Yeah,
grow,
massive.
everything grows very fast here.
They're gonna fall over and crush my house.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yep. Can we come up with a list of, like, let's say 4 or 5 arborists that you have to use? You can't use anybody that's not on the list? Can't do that, can we?
Just as long as they're state certified, and you'll see on, I can take you through their letters, they always put their number down, and what I do, I don't know what's been done in the past, but when I get that, I just go online to reassure that that's correct, that you just don't have somebody that's using a number somewhere. So I validate the fact that they are a certified arborist.
Yeah, we had somebody over on the cul-de-sac in Mandalay. It was almost like a joke. He was telling Jack, just put it on my bill. I'm going to cut the gumbo limbo. I'm going to cut the banyan trees over here. Then I'm going to cut those 5 oaks back there. What if it's 5,000 a tree? I don't care. Just do it. Put it on my bill.
You heard that?
Well, that's pretty much the attitude the guy had. Am I correct? He might as well have said it. And, and I know a couple of neighbors approached him, and basically he told them where they could go. So it's a different type of attitude with some people you have moving in, unfortunately. And they're beyond, they don't appreciate. And like I said, I've said in many meetings in the past, to me, this is old Florida when you walk into Sewalls Point. It's different. It's not a house that has a palm tree in front or 2 palm trees. Welcome to Florida. I mean, it's what it's supposed to look like, what it used to look like. And that's part of the charm and the appeal, and people like that are coming in and ruining the town.
Commissioner Fender.
Sorry, I keep dragging this meeting out, but we did receive an email today from the town, and Ms. Kimes showed up to talk about the extension of the Riverview work, so I'm just wondering what the reality and reasonablement of that extension might be. Maybe you can help us, Joe. How far offline is that?
Well, I'll let Joe answer the question, but just to take you back, when we were looking at Phase 3 and also purchasing the Riley property and the fact of expanding Phase 3, now, Joe looked into it and saw that, yes, we could do that, but it's going to delay the whole project by a year, and we probably lose one of the grants that we have for it. So
How far is the extension that we're talking about?
1 street.
And why does that take a year?
Because you'd have to redesign the whole project and run through the whole approval process with FEMA, correct? Or you want to address it, or?
So the problem you have, okay, is you've submitted grants, and believe it or not, the grants are for specific areas, okay? And they're based on 3 outfalls. And if you remember, we were at that time, when we started discussing this, we had a short time frame to get Mrs. Riley's lot acquired, first of all. Second of all, once you get into the process, and at that point, we had been into getting through the HMGP FEMA money for about a year, just to let them say, your design is good, you can go to the next phase of acquiring the lot, okay? And if at that time I had asked to change the scope of the work, they would have sent me back to ground zero again. And I was not going to take the chance of losing Mrs. Riley's lot or the process. So you need to understand, when you apply for a grant, we like to make them vague, but these 2 grants, the one for resiliency for $3.4 million and the one for HMGP, which takes forever to get on the list, and then once you're on the list, to be number 1 on the list, and then once you get on the list and you start the design, you do 1 phase of getting design done, and then the next phase, they have to prove that phase, show it's a cost benefit, and then you have to show that you can go to the next phase, which is acquire the land and do the construction. Again, if you look at your time frame, you would be starting all over again. So I said, let's finish Phase 3, get the grants all in order, and let's start working on 2. And I have to tell you, this is a problem with a lot of public projects. People decide when you're halfway down the path, they decide to change it, and then you start all over again. And here we are trying to get large sums of money. Let me just say this. We are at about $5 million worth of grant funding, okay? And what we found out, as Bob explained to you earlier, is we strategically did that to get some state funds against some federal funds. Turns out the state was getting money from the federal government, so they won't let us use that money on the same grant. So now we have to try to sort all that out. I'm just telling you, it's not an easy thing to change this stuff around. And I was not going to take the chance, first of all, that we would lose the lot. Second of all, that we could lose the grant. Because the grant we have there currently, as they pointed out to us when we went to them on Friday to say, and I'm talking about the HMGP FEMA grant, okay? We had to explain to them what happened with the resiliency grant, and they were open-minded about it and everything, but they also reminded us, Joe, this grant has to be spent currently by the end of the year, okay? That's pretty tight. Here we are, January. We probably have 9 months we could have up to a year to build the thing. We could be outside the grant deadline. Now, they are extending that grant deadline, okay, with the federal government, but they don't have that yet, okay? So, guys, I just have to tell you, we can try to get all these things to work, but once you get down a path and then you change it, you get yourself in a pickle because you're going to lose the grant funding and you're going to lose the opportunity on some of this land. So that's the reason why I would not recommend doing that at this time.
Joe, ask a quick question. Can the current outfall that they have, can we revitalize it and make it more efficient to where it'll actually work?
What are we talking about?
The outfall for the people that live over in Riverview. Currently, right now, what happens is, I guess a lot of the sand comes in and clogs it, so nothing gets out. And when things reverse, the water will come up onto Riverview Road. I've been on there many times when they've actually had the debris and all the stuff coming up, I guess you want to say. It's nothing you want to walk in, but is there like another place we could get to retain water in that area?
Well, again, that's going to be a matter of, and we are considering, just like we did with Mrs. Riley at first, acquiring portions of lots. We are looking at lots in the area to do some of that. So could that happen? Yes. The trouble you have with buying the land before you have the grant, which is the FEMA grant, is you don't get reimbursed for it. So there are things to do. In that condition, which you have right there, the best thing that can happen is we clean it out more regularly to get the sand out. That's about the best thing we can do. And you know, the hardest thing that I just want to make sure all of you realize, some of the things that we are doing in phase 3, consider items we learned in phase 1. Right, we built a resiliency project, and there's some things that we recognize could be done better, more efficiently, could be done with basically help the low-lying landowners and so forth. So we are making some adjustments. We're also making some adjustments based on what happened during the cold, okay? Making sure that we have more than one control structure that if one fails, the other backup one will keep the water from backing up to the inlet system and backing up. So we are doing modifications and we're learning from some of the things. Hurricanes, from also work that we did on phase 1, and so we're making some of those changes. What Bob explained to you, we are planning on using, we hope to be able to get credit for some of the retention area from the system we have now in phase 2, or I'm sorry, phase 3 area, right? We're hoping to use some of that for phase 2. So we are, when we get done with this, first of all, we're going to have a drainage system where they're all connected from phase 1 all the way up here to Town Hall, okay? So they'll all be connected. So what that does for us, it gives us some more control on discharging into the river, but that also means we got to make sure we control the water coming back from the river on our properties. So I know every time I get up here, I tend to go through a lot of different things here with you, but I'm just telling you, there's a lot of moving parts here, And, right now, the grant that you approved tonight is necessary to build Phase 3, okay? It is necessary
Yeah.
to build Phase 3, based on what we heard from FEMA as well as the resiliency. Now, don't get me wrong, I haven't put in how much money you are putting into the pot, because I'm trying to wait for that to be the last thing we do. But the fact of the matter is, we still need money, and that grant is important. That grant is for resiliency, that grant is for septic to sewer. And remember the meeting we had last month, where we said we need at least about $1.7 million in grants before we can build a septic to sewer in the first option for 148 lots. That's
Yeah.
why we need this grant. So there is a reason, and yeah, the grant kind of leans a little bit to stormwater management, you're right there, but there's paragraphs that completely say we are going to use that money for the 148 ERCs.
Commissioner Fender?
So just going to keep on a little bit more. First of all, let me say thank you for all you do. And the next thing is that I would never ask you to change the scope of the project we have in place that might jeopardize the grants that we have. But we've known each other a long time. You're a pretty creative guy. We're talking about one road. I wonder if there's some way to add an additional project separate from this scope that you have that might just extend the construction at the end of the construction time. I'm not saying to give an answer now. I'm just saying maybe let's put on our thinking hats to see if there's any options we have that does not jeopardize the scope, the
Is there, in other words,
documented.
Joe, is there any way, for instance, that we could use, we probably have $500,000 in capital millage funds that might be available?
These are two separate
Everything
projects.
you said you can do, but plan on the person writing the check is you. It's not going to come from a grant agency. That's my problem. It's like we moved up to,
Well, maybe let's just,
you can do it, I'm just telling you,
we got to be able to afford it, absolutely,
you're
for
going to have
sure.
to recognize
Yeah.
that the money's now going to come out of your pocket, and you're not going to get credit for the match on it, because you can't spend the money, their money, or the match before they say you have the grant. That's the problem with the
Well, let's
grant.
not make a
I'll let-
decision right
I
now.
think we understand that, but remember, the reason we made the millage higher was specifically for stormwater projects.
Right.
So there's no reason that we couldn't necessarily use that to perhaps extend this another block. I don't know. It's something to look at, though.
We're asking you to just think about it, I know, and you think all the time, so may
Well,
not be
like
possible.
I said, I've been
Commissioner Campo.
concentrating on how I can get, and one of the good things about when the state, and I just want you to know, they're working with us, but one of the good things that came out of, well, it was a really bad thing that we don't have a match between the resiliency 3.4 million and the 1.6 million that we got from, that was a bad thing. But the resiliency people did take away our match requirements, which was good, right? That was a good deal. But unfortunately, they then said, but you can't use our money if you use HMGP. So guess what?
Yeah.
Well, that's a killer. I can use one or the other, yet we've just waited a year to buy a lot because we had to wait for FEMA to say yes. So, guys, there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't mind looking at that. I'm just telling you, I can design this thing any way you want it, but just plan on bringing your checkbook out because you're going to pay for it.
And didn't we recently add that we were going to do the Mandalay project too? Remember that one, that 403, the higher up one on River Road?
River Road, yeah, that's another grant we have out there.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that's a lot of,
So, like I said, I'll be happy to do this. We can look at all different ways of skinning this cat, but I'm just telling you, the grant requirements are, every time we turn around on a grant, they give us they put another roadblock in front of us. They keep doing that, and I can't get you I can't build a project. Before long, the grant's going to expire, and I'm not going to have a project built. So
Yeah.
No,
you
don't slow
got to
up.
balance this.
yeah. I say we, if we can, let's clean it more often. That would seems like a really logical, easy, in the meantime, let's clean it often.
Yeah, and what we found out, just so you know, Bob approved it, we ended up finding out from the last storm, we got a lot of sand in the Raya Vista outfall, which we just cleaned. We had to go clean it again because it's clogged up, and that came from the coal. That's where that came from. So we just got to stay on top of them.
Something tells me this isn't a leakage issue.
Commissioner Campo.
So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I know that you're juggling a lot, and I don't disagree with anything you said. But when the Riverview folks came up during the summer and said they had these issues, you said, my recollection is you said, I'll be happy to do more projects, I just need more land. So I spent personally a lot of my own time and energy to get the land and to line up the financing. And now to find out that we can't extend that road one road down, we've got Heritage lot, that's all manicured, ready to go. That's got about hopefully $500,000 or $600,000. So when a consultant asked the commission to go out and get some resources so that the overall group project can be done, and there's nothing to show for that, you know, it doesn't give a good set of sense of teamwork. Because when we set out to get Mrs. Riley's lot, that deal was dead. That deal was dead. You challenged me, get me a lot. We got the lot. And now we're not getting any extra coverage. So that's why I'm disappointed. So I don't think that we should slow anything down. I don't disagree with anything that you've said, but it disappoints me that we went through all those extra effort and we're not getting anything extra as far as water ability and conveyance of water. That's only one road up. That is ground zero for the flood issues, and we have a lot of people that travel in and out of that area. And to think that now, if we have this project that is going to end at Pineapple, and we have to detour property, where do you think that property is going to go? The next street. So we're going to have all that detoured property. I mean, talk about insult to injury. Sorry, we're going to have to wait a year. I know your road is flooded, but can we use it for our new ingress and egress? That's going to be a tough one. I'd rather point that out beforehand, because that's going to be a lot for us to swallow, and I think those folks will come out, you know, Thursday and have their voices heard. Thanks.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, I noticed directly across on the riverside, there's a property directly across from Mrs. Kimes' house. And that property has almost like every time there's a king tide, that king tide comes right up to the road and across the street and across a good portion of their lawn. I think that's an area that we could use probably. I think the homeowner, I don't know if she's ever been approached, but I think that would be a good area to retain, at least a smaller retention pond. Maybe we could work something with that homeowner. Has anybody approached her?
That house was sold $600,000 over the asking price, and the family has, the project is working on for over a year, almost 2 years now, and frankly, I think we need to figure out a way to keep the water from coming south down, because that's the other piece, is it's like a flow directly east. So offline, I'd love to talk, because there should be a way to expand that project.
Thank you. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I was just going to say, in our engineer's defense, I don't remember the land for Phase 3 ever being, getting the idea that we could use it for other phases. I feel like we've always been very compartmentalized in how we've done this. It's been Phase 1, Phase 3, Phase 2, Phase 4. And I agree that Riverview, that is nasty. That area is nasty. I see it. It is not good. But I don't think that we, everyone's working really hard. I don't think we've been misled. I always was under the impression the land, that property was for Phase 3. And I think, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a construction worker, but the idea that we can just quickly add a whole other street and not run into some obstacles, considering the way that we do these projects. We don't have the funding for these projects. We jump through crazy hoops that are all moving to try to get the money. So the idea that we can, I just think there needs to be a little more credit. I think they're working hard. And then I did speak to a homeowner, and I'm not going to give a location, in Phase 2 who is interested, I think I mentioned to the town manager, in talking to the town about potentially maybe being willing to work and have some land available for Phase 2. So I'm going to try to keep focusing on moving that forward in a productive manner. So
We need land.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need land.
So.
Okay, are there any other questions?
commission.
Can you come to the mic and fill out a form?
We have a
I
form.
mean,
We
that's,
got a form, but, you know, we're kind of past the public,
I did fill out a form.
kind of past the public comment section, though.
First of all, is the strategic plan public? I just have a couple questions for you all to consider. Can the commission also, in light of all this, can you consider slowing the speed limit down on Sewalls Point Road? It creates tremendous erosion, especially in light of the sea level rise and the flooding that's happening. And can the commission look at developing a conservation plan that includes tree canopies, but also, recycling, being a lot more resourceful as a conservation community? And recycling is a big part of that. And the other issue is, there are two opportunities for Arbor Day. One is a Florida Arbor Day in January 21st. And the second one is in April, and it's a National Arbor Day. And it would be great to get the town to be a part of that. And the other thing is that through the Master Gardeners, through the Martin County Extension Program, there is a list of licensed arborists, certified licensed arborists in the county. So please consider using that as a resource. Thank you.
Commissioner Fender.
Just to follow up on that, since we're this late in the meeting, is that all those suggestions, awesome. Of course, we would support them, I'm sure. Adding that work to get out the ground is sometimes troublesome. So anytime initiative comes forward like this, I always like to try to get on board, but I also push back a little bit and say, the best way to make any kind of progress is to put forth a committee or a document or a deliverable that says, hey, here's a framework for making this happen. If we have to start from a standing start, it'll be hard for, especially when you have the passion, I would say, bring something forward and we could talk more.
Okay, any further commission comments? Motion to adjourn? We're adjourned, thank you.